Well, with that, I've not seen, anyone trickling in the last couple of minutes. So we can go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone again for your patience and your willingness to participate in the meeting today. So the board, the professional staff, and the nominating committee, we all had just a really big part in bringing this about, and want to thank everyone for everyone's hard work in getting us to this point. I've already done our speaker check, so I think we're good on all of the measures. So I will actually hand it over to Samantha Visco for our chalice lighting words.
As we approach our agenda, let us remember that we are doing the work of the community. When we do the work of the community, we touch lives. When we touch lives, we change the world. May this chalice flame we now kindle remind us throughout our meeting of our ministry and our mission.
Thanks, Samantha. So this is our second members meeting that is going to be held via Zoom, and this year has certainly been a challenging one, but through all of it, we've stayed connected as a community, and we're looking forward to moving closer to our traditional in-person gatherings. I know that we have a few more opportunities outside of just our regular meetings at 234, as it is renamed, to see each other, but we'll have some other in-person opportunities as they come up. So our intent is to keep the matters covered in this meeting to the minimum that we need to do in order to meet our legal and operational requirements. We recognize that people have obligations today, and we deeply appreciate everyone's just willingness to be a part of this process. So before we get started, we do need to cover some housekeeping matters. So this is going to be, we're going to have a vote by show of hands, but we have polls set up for each of those. So we'll let you know as we sort of initiate each of those polls, and we have it set up so that if you do have two members on one device, you'll have a yes or a no for one member, a yes or a no for two members, or a yes for one member and a no for one member if you have two members on the same device voting differently. So before we do have our absentee ballots. So if you've already voted via absentee ballot, please don't vote again. You can obviously participate if we have open forum for questions or anything, but please don't vote again. And that'll be in the initial poll to see who's already been a part of that. So now that we sort of have logistics covered, also if you have any specific questions, obviously you can send them to the chat. I know that not only am I monitoring those, but Catherine is as well. So we'll start off. As a member of the Board of Trustees, I'll call this meeting of the members of the UUCC to order. Ask the question, do we have a quorum, which is 20% of the voting members, which would be 124 people. I'm going to initiate a poll. The first poll is to say, do you have two members on your device, or if you have one member that voted absentee or two members that voted absentee. So if you are just one member, don't vote because we're going to take the total count and figure out how many people we have. But I think we can pretty much say we're not going to have a quorum, but we're going to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to launch the poll now. And I'm going to give it a minute. All right. And with that, I'm going to end the poll. And Lisa, I think this will be a pretty easy question, but do we have a quorum?
We do not have a quorum, David.
All right. So our second poll, since we do not have a quorum, is to vote as to whether or not we can continue to move forward. We would need 80% of voting members to move forward with the business of this meeting. So I will launch the second poll, and you will see the option. Let me launch the right poll. All right, and
you need a motion. Do you need a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Second? Yes, go ahead, Catherine.
I move to vote to proceed, notwithstanding that we don't have a quorum.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to launch a poll. In the absence of the quorum, do we vote to proceed with the meeting? And I'll give it a minute. And apologies if y'all can hear me typing with intention. People at work are always telling me I type too hard. Apologies for the delay, Barry, but thank you for being here. All right, with that, Lisa, do we have 80% saying yes?
We have 100% saying yes.
All right, the motion is carried. We can proceed to the business for which this meeting was called, as stated in the notice. All right, so our first order of business is the budget. I am going to share my screen with the first one. Or Elisa, did you want me to share the first document that you shared and then the
financials for the year?
Okay.
So as David's preparing to share his screen, Alicia Hudo will now present the proposed budget for the 21-22 fiscal year. If you have questions or comments during this presentation, you may enter them using the chat function. You will see a chat button probably in the bottom of your screen. Everyone will be able to see the comments and questions as they appear. We recognize this is not the same as a robust conversation in the sanctuary as we wish it were. However, we will do our best to address any questions or comments raised. Alicia?
All right, guys. I want to first start out before presenting the proposed budget for the year, just to give an overall summary of our finances for the current year. As you can see, total income through the end of April, which was the last approved financial documents that we have available. Our income for the year as of April 30th is unfavorable to budget by about $25,000. And as you can see, the shortfall in income is due to lower pledge payment receipts, as well as the closing of Open Door through July 2021 through December of 2021. And also because we were closed, we were unable to open up to renters. Total expenses for the year, though, were actually favorable to budget by a total of about $131,000, which is overall producing a net income for the year of $131,837. Now, this year's unusually large surplus is totally due to our reduction in expenses, and the reduction in expenses were due to us delaying the hiring of our interim director of lifespan religious education, as well as our sexton. We also had savings in underspending in our program areas and also due to lower facility usage. Overall, this year, due to the pandemic, we were able to experience some savings, but as you can see, we did have lower income, which going into the future may be an issue, given that we are going to be bringing our expenses in line with our hiring of our sexton in the coming months, as well as the interim director of religious education. So overall this year, we fared well during the pandemic, and we anticipate as we close out the year based on our projected expenses for May and June, that we can end the year with a surplus of about $130,000. I'm sorry, guys, I may talk a little fast, but I just wanted to at least stop right there and just see were there any questions in regards to our financial picture for the current year.
Yes, Elisa, there was one comment. Jill St. John said it looks as though our total income net is 106 and not 131. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, as opposed to budget. Yes, correct. It's 106,458.
That was the
Catherine,
only
were there any
question.
other questions?
There were no other questions. People praised the fact, or not praised, but we're happy about the fact that we're really only 4,000 below budget in pledges during a pandemic year, but there were no further questions.
Okay.
Lisa, you want me to move on to the next attachment?
I just also want to take 1 second to just make sure that we really drive home the fact that our financial performance this year was primarily due to the fact that we underspent. So as we're transitioning back into person starting in July, and we're going to be doing some hiring, we're starting back to slowly have meetings in person, our income has to be in line with our projected expenses. And so although the shortfall as far as pledges was relatively minor going into the coming year, we also need to make sure that going forward, we get our income up, because our expenses are definitely going to be up coming into the 2021-2022 congregational year.
Thank you. And that reminds me of the other point that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted during this discussion. Can you also talk about the positive impact that our Paycheck Protection Program loan had on our performance this year?
When the pandemic hit, they opened up the opportunity for small businesses to be able to apply for a payroll protection loan, which helped cover 8 weeks of both our salary and benefits, as well as some of our basic operational expenses. And in the previous fiscal year, we were able to receive one of those loans, and we were fully forgiven for one of those loans. So us having the influx of income to take care of 8 weeks of expenses also helped boost our financial picture as far as our reserves and how much we have put away for a rainy day. So in addition to us underspending for the year, in the prior congregational year, we were the recipient of a PPP loan, which helped cover some of our costs at the very beginning of the pandemic.
Thank you.
All
Catherine,
right.
Any more questions before we move on to this one? Okay, thank you. I see you shaking your head.
All right, as we move forward into the proposed budget for the current year, as you can see that we are presenting a proposed budget for the coming year with a significant deficit of around $40,000. But as you guys have had a chance to take a look at, if you notice that our income, we're actually projecting to have a loss in income over the previous year of about $40,000. So this budget wholly reflects the decrease in pledge receipts, as well as us not being able to anticipate rental income that we've received in prior years. So overall, we are presenting a deficit budget, but it is primarily due to the fact that we just can't in good faith anticipate that our income will magically increase because we are opening up our doors. But this budget has been thoroughly vetted by not only our finance team and our board of trustees, and both of them have fully endorsed this budget with the thought that because we've done so well this year, that we can use some of our anticipated surplus to help cover the deficit for the coming year, as well as have reserve funds, which will be in balance with what our desired goals are as we move forward. So although we are presenting a deficit budget, financially, we have the ability, based on our financial performance of this year, to help absorb that budget, as well as get our reserve finances to our desired goal of $250,000.
Thank you, Alicia. Did you want me to go to the next page for any of the notes?
I will open it up to questions.
Okay.
First, to see if there's anyone who has any specific questions that aren't necessarily covered.
Yes, there is one question which says, I should know this, but which income item includes the plate?
Contributions.
Any other questions, Catherine? All right.
All right.
Oh.
Anything on the notes page, Alicia, that you want to highlight?
I pretty much covered it. As I talked about, the income is pretty much being budgeted the way that it is because of the uncertainty as we go forward, as well as the result of our stewardship campaign for this year. Expenses have pretty much been kept in line, and to be honest, we are not in a place where we can even reduce expenses at this point, because we are pretty much budgeting right up to the amount that we need for each one of these areas. Overall, we had fixed costs, and as you know, things get more expensive. We've had to budget for that, but we've also experienced savings in some areas.
Catherine, any additional questions?
There was a question. The question was, what is denominations? Jay answered it in the chat that it is our contribution to the UUA.
Any other final questions before we call for a vote? Okay. With no further questions, does someone want to make a motion that we call this to a vote?
This is John Burns. I move that we do that.
Thank you, John. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's call the question. We've initiated a Zoom poll on the matter of whether we should approve the budget. As with the last poll, you'll have 5 choices. Please select the one that reflects the number of members on this Zoom meeting and how you vote. You'll have 2 minutes to state your vote. Okay. Lisa, do you want to read the votes for us, please?
Yeah, so the 1-member vote, 71% of us voted yes. And for the 2-member vote, 29% voted yes. There are no votes.
Okay, great. we'll say that the approval is there for the 21-22 budget. So next order of business, we're going to move on to covenant.
That's my part. Covenant is both a noun and a verb. It can be a written agreement among individual community members promising to behave in certain ways. It can mean to engage in mutual promises with spirit, with other people, within communities. Membership covenants take many forms and reflect the needs and best wishes of a variety of groups, from church committee members to staff groups to how members of an entire congregation agree to be in right relationship with one another. A covenant is also the positive expression of healthy behavior so that leaders and other members have more clarity in identifying and responding to disruptive behavior. The board convened a right relations task group to develop a covenant for this community. I'm going to ask Bill Gay to speak briefly about their process. Bill has been on the task group since the beginning, and I'm going to ask Bill to speak briefly about sort of their process. Bill?
Thank you. First, let me indicate who the members of the task group are. Currently, Barbara Devaney, Rob Marcy, who until recently was chair, and me, and I am currently the chair. Earlier, we had another co-chair, Felix Mockler. We also had Diane St. John, and until his untimely death, Bob Bushorn. The development of the covenant in part comes about from recommendations from the UUA, urging congregations to develop a covenant. And in this process, we kept close attention to UU 7 principles, particularly in terms of the worth and dignity of each individual and of acceptance of one another, and of our own vision and mission statement, particularly our being a welcoming and inclusive community. We spent quite a bit of time looking at the covenant from various UU congregations and other resources that were available to us. And in the process, we gave particular attention to issues of language and values. We had lots of meetings over the course of over a year. The covenant itself underwent several revisions, and a couple of these were sent to the board for their comments, questions, and suggestions. The version that you see before you now also and significantly incorporates feedback from the 3 Zoom question and answer sessions that were offered to members. So I and some others from our task group are also available if you have questions about the covenant itself. So I'll turn it back to Catherine.
So what you see on your screen right now is the current covenant that the board is proposing the members vote on. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. Lisa will be reading aloud anything that's in the chat. This has gone through several question and answer sessions at this point. So I'm hopeful most of you have had the opportunity to review this and have had any questions that you have answered. But obviously, if you have questions, please post them in the chat. And Lisa, let me know if there are any questions coming up. Okay, it doesn't seem that we're having any questions. That being the case, although I wish we were able to do this in person. Oh, hang on, we have a question.
It says, what mechanism is proposed for times of difficulty?
So at this point, all that we have is the covenant. The intention of the task group and the board is that over the course of the next year, specific procedures and mechanisms will be developed that are in keeping with this covenant to address exactly that question. What happens when we have times of difficulty? What happens when things arise? But the step one of that, before we can come into that part, is to have this covenant in place so that we know how we drive a mechanism that is in keeping with the covenant that we've adopted as a congregation.
And I'd like to add on to that is that the task group that was doing this already has started on that. and has provided some of that material. As you know, we wouldn't be starting from scratch on those additional mechanisms to deal with conflict. So we already sort of have a head start on those measures, but that this is still sort of the first part, or the base, the foundation of what we would have, and then we would vote as a community to put additional measures in place as we get into the future.
I'll give it just a moment to see if there's any other questions, and then we'll put it to a vote if not.
There's a recommendation to hyphenate works in progress as works in progress.
Noted.
And Catherine, I don't see anything else coming through.
Okay. In that case, since there are being no more questions or comments, we will proceed to bring the covenant to a vote of the community. Do I have a motion to approve the covenant?
I make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. Let's call the question. You should see a poll coming up. Again, you can vote as one member or two members together or with a split vote. We'll have about a minute and a half for this. Okay, Lisa, how did the votes come out?
We have 70% of single member people voting yes, 28% of two members voting yes, and we have 2% of one member yes and one member no.
Thank you. So with those votes in, it looks as though the covenant is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, everyone. Our next order of business are the three new members of the Board of Trustees. So I will hand it over to Paul Wilson and bring up the three nominee bios on the screen share.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you probably know, the Board of Trustees represents the congregation of the UUCC through a group of 9 members, each ordinarily serving a 3-year term. This year, Catherine Barnes, Cindy Hostetler, and David Reynolds are finishing their 3-year commitment, and we need to elect 3 new members to serve in their place. And just as an aside, let me say that they will be sorely missed. This past April, the board constituted a nominating committee made up of Margie Storch, Colin Hood, and Mike Long, none of whom are current board members, to develop a slate of new members to serve on the board. As the result of a self-assessment conducted this year by the board, the committee utilized a different approach than in prior years. Excuse me. The assessment revealed that the board and its members would benefit from having certain kinds of experience in areas such as policy writing and review, marketing, or previous service on other nonprofit boards. The board also recognized that we could improve the diversity of our membership in terms of age. So the nominating committee has kept those issues in mind while seeking out new members. Both the board and the nominating committee believed that this approach would give rise to a richer slate of candidates. So from a larger list of candidates, the nominating committee has proposed the following slate: Ben Baxter, Susan McClelland, and Kurt Merkel. If you have questions or comments about the proposed slate of candidates, please use the chat feature to raise those questions or make those comments. We'll wait a little while here to make sure everyone has a chance to comment or ask questions.
Paul, Margie, and Tom
Oh, good
raised
point.
that we don't forget to ask for nominations from the floor.
Okay, that is correct. If you have a nomination to make at this time, please do that in the chat. I don't see nothing.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Well, in that case, David, if you could, there we go. Thank you. That being the case, we'll go ahead and proceed with bringing the slate of candidates to a vote. Do I have a motion to elect Ben Baxter, Susan McClelland, and Kurt Merkel to the Board of Trustees to serve a 3-year term starting on July 1st, 2021?
I make a first motion.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, terrific. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. We have the same kind of Zoom poll on the matter of whether we should approve the slate of candidates. And there is the poll. So we'll take a couple of minutes for people to register their votes. Huh. Lisa or Catherine, do you see that comment about?
Says
I
not
do,
sure.
but I'm not sure how to tell who has voted and who hasn't.
Well,
I don't know if David has that ability.
I still see the poll on the screen. That's why I'm wondering how that happened.
So Chris and Denise Clark, you did not vote, but your image disappeared regardless. Can you privately chat your vote to Lisa?
Oh, that's good thought.
So in the chat function where it says to everyone, you can do a drop down from that and it would just be to Lisa Hagen, and then you can text her privately.
Okay, thank you, Chris and Denise. I see that.
Okay, poll is gone. Lisa, how did the votes come out?
So with Chris and Denise's addition, 18 of the members voted yes from 2-member households, and 36 members voted yes from 1-member households. There were no votes. Everyone voted in favor.
Okay. So the slate is approved and Ben Baxter, Susan McClelland, and Kurt Merkel are elected to the Board of Trustees for full 3-year terms. Congratulations and welcome aboard. As well as electing these new members to the board, we have to fill 2 additional positions because of the resignations of 2 board two board members earlier this year, we recommend that Susan Cox fill the vacant position that has a 1-year term remaining, and that Sam Visco fill the vacant position that has a 2-year term remaining. If you have questions or comments about the candidates who have been selected to fill these positions, please use the chat feature to raise the questions or the comments. And we'll wait a minute or so here to see, to make sure everyone has a chance to do that. Oops.
Catherine, were there any questions about the 2 appointments? Okay.
Anything show up? No.
There have been numerous congratulations to the 3 that we voted on, but no questions have arisen on these 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, in that case, let's proceed with bringing this matter to a vote as well. Do I have a motion to elect Susan Cox to serve for the 1-year term remaining and Sam Visco to serve for the 2-year term remaining?
So moved.
Okay. Second. Great. Wait. Yeah. So, where are we? Yeah, there we are. Okay, there is the familiar poll. Please fill it out as is appropriate. You have about a minute and a half, maybe. Okay. Lisa, how did the votes come out?
Of the 50 people who voted, 34 voted yes, and 16 of the 2-member households voted yes. There were no negative votes on this vote.
Okay. Then Susan Cox and Sam Visco will fill out the appropriate terms here. And that completes selection of members for the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Paul. The next item on our agenda is the presentation of the Sybil Bernstein Award. So I'll hand it over to Cindy.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor today as co-chair of the UUCC Board of Trustees to present this year's Sybil Bernstein Award. Sybil Bernstein was an outstanding member of our community and the member for which this award has been named. The recipient of the Sybil Bernstein Award must demonstrate significant commitments to the community, be a role model for the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, dedicate time, talent, passion, and demonstrate exemplary behavior in their free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Together, this year's recipients, with an S, have 61 cumulative years of dedication to our community. During this time, they have served on the Board of Trustees, been actively involved in our children and youth education programs, participated in the ministerial search campaign, been group leaders for the religious humanism team, and volunteered for the Open Door School. In addition to fulfilling these roles, they also have shared their many talents in providing us joy through their musical contributions, leading song circles, hosting dinners, helping in the sewing of quilts, hosting gorgeous memorial events, and even playing Santa Claus. They have raised 2 children who now have children of their own that embrace our principles and support our community. Everyone, please acknowledge this year's Sybil Bernstein Award winners, Nancy and Richard Green.
Woo! Yay!
Thank you so much.
Ho, ho, ho. Well, that's a hoot.
Congratulations.
Was that a silver cup? Was it a silver cup?
Yes, we will get you your
Richard.
physical award, Rich. Absolutely.
All right. Yes.
Nancy is,
Richard, call me Monday.
Nancy is on here as Rich Charlotte. Did she turn on the picture?
Nancy, are you there?
She was as
Okay.
Rich Charlotte.
I see. Well, congratulations to the 2 of you, and we really do appreciate all of your contributions and your family contributions. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to move into the reports on the annual review meeting, and we're going to start out with our stewardship review with John Burns.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Great. Well, the stewardship team is comprised of co-chairs, myself and Cindy Martinek, and Erica Blake, Elaine Camp, Chris Clark, Franklin McClellan, Sean Morton, Gwen Mobius. And then we have Kelly Green, John Herrick, and Alicia Hutto serving as our staff liaisons. And I'd like to extend my great appreciation to all of them for the countless hours of service through the whole COVID thing. We've been able to operate, I think, very effectively. Would also like to call out all of our canvassers who have agreed to do canvassing in a very interesting format with a lot of unknowns. So that includes a lot of the members of the stewardship team, as well as Lincoln Baxter, Susan Cox, Rich Green, Ellen Holliday, Colin Hood, Neil Sigmund, and Paul Wilson. So thank you to all of you. And also a thanks to all of you who pledged this past year. As you saw in the financial report, we've actually managed to hold up pretty well given all of the challenges, and that is thanks to all of your commitment to our community. So thank you. Faced with the pandemic and an uncertain economy, the stewardship team continued to encourage generosity at the 5% level across the board and oversaw peer-to-peer canvassing efforts, contacting individual members about their pledges, all done virtually. New initiatives by the team include acknowledging generous pledgers through handwritten thank you notes, the mailing of handcrafts by our CYRE children and youth, and the creation of virtual UUC member appreciation nights and a UUCC fun festival on our grounds done in conjunction with the community building team. And I'm hoping some of you had a chance to attend maybe the Halloween party, the Valentine party, or our recent fun festival. Also new this year was the creation of monthly captains who act as cheerleaders by offering testimony and encouraging financial commitment and generosity during the pledge month. Stewardship team members recorded monthly stewardship messages for Sunday services, which you hopefully saw included as you attended our services. Despite our best efforts, this year's campaign proved difficult due to the pandemic. Monthly pledge response rate ranged from 45 to 78%, with an average response rate of 65% as of the writing of this report. While we had several members increase their pledges, those pledges were offset by reductions from some of our more generous pledgers. New member pledges are also down, given our move to virtually only services. As the team considers the strategy for the 2021-2022 campaign, it is considering our return to in-person services and programming, as well as generational giving, how different generations respond to philanthropy and stewardship. That's the report that we'd like to submit and are open to any questions from the community.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, I think we'll turn it back over to you. And again, really appreciate not only the generosity of all of our members, but particularly all of the stewardship team members and canvassers and anyone who would like to do canvassing in the upcoming year. We would love to have you join our group.
Thank you, John. Much appreciated. All right, I think our next speaker is Mike Long to talk about the Memorial Endowment Trust grant process. Mike? Mike, getting a little bit of feedback there. Are you still there?
I think it was a drum roll.
Here we go. That was a drum roll. Sorry.
Oh, nice.
Oh my goodness. Oops. I think I've gotten rid of myself and I've got to shut off my drum roll. Technically, I'm away from my element here. Stay with me one sec. Thanks, David. Each year at this time, the Memorial Endowment Trust makes awards to grants for worthy projects that might not fit cleanly into our operating budget, but which support our community's vision and mission. At this time, I'm happy to report that the total net assets in the trust exceed $1 million. This year, we are awarding $39,000 to 6 different grant proposals that have come from the community. The first one is an outdoor gathering area with a fire pit located near the Memorial Garden and classrooms. This one is sponsored by the CYRE team and costs $3,000. Tracy Hickman and her husband, Scott, who own a construction company, are donating their labor. Our middle and high school youth will now finally have an outdoor space for gathering and hanging out. And adults are welcome to use it also. The pit's going to be surrounded by 4 12-foot benches and 4 Adirondack chairs, and the anticipated completion date, July 18th. The second grant is for updating interior signs and banners. This is sponsored by Building and Grounds and the communications team, and will be spearheaded by Roy Smith. It's going to cost $2,000 and will include the total makeover of interior signage to align with the new name, logo, and branding efforts, and will include banners that can be used to identify us as a group at various meetings and marches. The anticipated completion date for this is December 31st. The third grant is for a technology upgrade to create hybrid meeting and learning opportunities, and this one will cost $15,000. It is sponsored by the entire professional staff. The objective is to convert the 3 most used spaces, Bernstein Room, Freeman Hall, and the conference room, into areas that functionally blend in-person meetings with the virtual world. The anticipated completion date is August 31. The fourth grant will be used to update the aesthetics of the worship experience and will cost $2,500. It's sponsored by the worship team and will pay for the purchase of 5 faux flower arrangements, 3 decorative vessels, sculptures, or crafts, and refinishing the credenza in the vestibule. The completion date for this will be August 31st. The fifth grant will be used to strengthen our internet Wi-Fi access throughout the building. It is sponsored again by the professional staff and will cost $4,700. The anticipated completion date for this project is August 31st. The last grant is a contribution of $11,800 to aid our marketing efforts. About $1,500 to $2,000 of this will be used to hire a media consultant who will advise us on optimizing our media buys to help make ourselves known to those in the community who share our vision. This proposal was sponsored by the communications and membership teams. So we should have 4 of the 6 projects complete before we reunite in September. In the 6 years that we have awarded these grants, we've been able to contribute $198,300 for 19 projects that have ranged from replacing desks in ODS and CYRE classrooms, all the way to the installation of the audiovisual system throughout the building. We have only been able to do this through your ongoing generous support. On behalf of the board of the Memorial Endowment Trust, I say thank you, and please continue to keep us in mind. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Catherine, are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, 2 related questions. There was one clarification on where exactly it was located. I think that's been addressed in the chat. And then 2 individuals asked if the report of the MET awards would be provided or posted in Currents or elsewhere.
It will be, and it'll be on our website, and it'll be posted in Currents, and we'll probably put it in some other places too.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? I need to update my sound effect game now, Mike. I gotta find a good drum roll sound for my meetings this week. All right.
I would like to congratulate everyone and thank them for their robust contributions to our community.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I think, Cindy, I think we're moving on to staff announcements, correct?
Yes, and I wasn't sure Jay or Eve or both of you were going to do that, so carry on.
Thank you. I'm mindful of the time and especially of our late start. And not only that, but the fact that opening pitch today was at 1:20. So there is a need for us to move along. When I was a young kid growing up in a wonderful congregation, we were taught, and some of you may have learned this too, this is the church, this is the steeple, open the door and see all the people. As kids, we thought it was very funny to say, this is the church, this is the steeple, open the door, but where are all the people? That joke in the last 14 months became far less humorous to me and to us. None of us could have imagined the period of time that we have just endured. And as I wrote in my minister's report for our annual report, the fact that we would endure an entire year without one single service in our sanctuary, it's unimaginable. I want to thank you for your continued support of this congregation, your participation in it. You've heard in this meeting about the robust activity of groups like our Covenant Development Group, of the MET, and others who have been hard at work during this year. Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for your presence. I want to thank you personally for the many of you who reached out to me in one of the more challenging years of my life in support and encouragement. And finally, I want to thank my colleagues on our professional staff who have learned many new skills, many of which we never hoped to know. Mike, we will be talking with you about how to incorporate drum rolls in the future. But we have learned a lot of tech skills that that none of us ever wanted to have to learn, but we're grateful for the support that allowed us to pivot to a virtual congregation and continue robust programming. We continue to hear from you, how excited you are about coming back together. And I assure you that no one is more excited about giving up the virtual format and returning in-person activity than your professional staff. You look for opportunities as soon as next week. You heard the announcement today of Summer Sing, 11 o'clock in the traffic circle next week. We'll get together and sing next week in person, and watch for other opportunities this summer and for information about our return in September. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jay. Eve, any other announcements?
No, I'll just echo Jay and say how touching it has been all year. I've thought so many times, it will make sense. It'll be fair if nobody shows up to this team meeting, if nobody is at this worship service. I get it. It's such a difficult year. You have so many demands on your time. And again, seeing you show up. We heard about the stewardship team. You can read in the annual report, just so many teams went above and beyond this year, when I know in a lot of ways in your personal lives, you were probably running on fumes, and we just really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that before we move on to the next agenda item?
Just one comment that the poster hoped that the annual report would be more prominently noticeable and available, that she finally found it last year's by accident after searching and scrolling through governance links.
All right, well, I will hand it over to Cindy for our Board of Trustee overview.
Thanks, David. The focus of the Board of Trustees was primarily on the review and incorporation of widening the circle of concern into our call to action. Widening the Circle of Concern is a publication from the UUA that was launched during a gathering convened by UUA in Atlanta in 2017. UU leaders of color were asked to share their insights into how the association could continue moving forward in the midst of another racially charged moment. The report was completed in February 2020, prior to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Additional focus items included the continuation of our quest to identify a measurement process paired with policy governance in order to capture our progress toward strategic goals. The group charged with writing a covenant for right relations completed their task in the spring in order for informational sessions to be conducted with members prior to the annual meeting. After 2 resignations from the board, we conducted a self-assessment to identify key characteristics in future board members without setting up standards that discourage participation. Specifically, the issue of class bias came up. Nonprofit boards can be skewed toward big donors, and we don't want to send a message that only affluent members with certain types of careers are welcome as trustees. The board continue its work to identify processes and measures. In addition to that, we are also refining our assessment for professional staff as well as ministerial contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And with that, if there are any questions on any of that overview, and I know that we had, that was included in our broader report that we've submitted. I'm not sure if that's been posted yet or not. But if there are no questions, I will hand it over to Tawana for our closing comments.
Thank you, David. It is my distinct pleasure as a member of the board to share with you the tremendous dedication, hard work, and the spirit of service our retiring board members, Catherine Barnes, Cindy Hostetler, and David Reynolds have displayed throughout their tenure. They have not hesitated to delve into research of very challenging policy issues and to present them to the rest of the board with integrity and clarity. They have communicated and provided support to the Right Relations team and the Finance Committee, especially in this trying year of COVID. You have brought knowledge and skills to the board that have been very helpful. We are thankful and very grateful for your service. A special thanks to our staff and volunteers as well, who have worked tirelessly to make this year work for all of us. As we bring to close our annual membership meeting and acknowledge the journey we have made through the years, let us be mindful of the enduring bond that keeps us together. Let us remember those who went before and paved the road for us to travel. Let us remember our pioneers with admiration and gratitude, with honor and joy. Memories are for us to cherish and to share. The future is for us to mold together. Let us be about that work. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for participating in this process.
Thank you so much, Tawana, and thank you everyone for your participation today and throughout these trying times. Really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
David, I think for your OCD point, we may have adjourned exactly at 2 p.m.
Yes, it was beautiful.
One.
I will put that in the minutes.
All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.